Best thing that's ever happened to you financially. Go.
Easy. Sold my car on Carvana. Amazing offer.
Really? I hit 200 on a scratcher.
Did the scratcher come to your house and hand you a check?
No.
How many scratchers did you hit to get that? I hit a button on Carvana.com once.
Okay, that's fair.
It's like the lottery, except you always win.
Not like the lottery at all, actually.
Exactly. Inexplicably good. Offers worth bragging about. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Join Scotty G and the coach tomorrow at Bar Dub Grill off exit 222 in Nephi. They'll be doing their show live on location from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's college football time. I know Scotty G's got to show up at Utah State because they're doing a media day there, kind of like BYU did when they're an independent because the Pac-12's not doing.
Tim LaComb has one too.
Yes, you're right. They will be there together. Because the Pac-12 doesn't have a conference media day, at least not this year. So Utah State's doing their own individual thing this week.
And I saw what you put out there before you leave the Utah State. Bronco doesn't do motivational stuff.
Oh, so he won't put it on the old bulletin board. Not going to do it. Doesn't care they're picked 7th in an 8-team league by somebody who may or may not know what they're talking about.
He's always voiced his objection to that.
Oh, okay.
It's not his style. The style works.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Stick to your
you got to be who you are.
Pattern and be who you are, right? And that's his pattern.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to spend a lot of time on that stuff.
But go ahead.
Doesn't want to spend a lot of energy on that stuff.
Continue.
The Denver Gazette. It was the Denver Gazette that did a poll. Boise State won. They got almost all the first place votes.
I think it's just an internet thing.
San Diego State and Fresno State were second and third with one first-place vote each. Texas State, who's kind of the mystery in the league to us in this part of the world, was picked fourth.
Kid name, I think it's Brad Jackson, is their quarterback. And I was just funny you say that. I just reading stuff as we do.
Yep.
Read a piece on him yesterday. Yesterday.
Is he a transfer? Because I was just reading something.
He was there last year.
Oh, okay. I was reading something before I went on vacation, so now I'm a little fuzzy on the details. But they were talking about up in their NIL game and up in their presence in the portal and their fan base really excited about the move to this league.
No question.
And that even though they don't have the history and the tradition, all that, it's Texas and there's a lot of athletes. And so they were talking about how hey, let's bring guys home who didn't want to come here when they were freshmen, but now they're juniors and our place in the universe has changed. You can totally hear their pitch.
Yes.
Wazoo was 5, Colorado State 6, Utah State 7, and Oregon State 8. Oregon State really gutted by all the changes in the world of college football. Wazoo weathered them a little better than Oregon State did. So kind of starting over there for Oregon State.
And I want to see them do well, or at least be competitive because they got undercut big time.
So Scott and Tim will be in Logan for the Aggie Media Day. You and I are going to BYU tomorrow. Yak, I assume you'll be there as well, along with a cast of thousands, for the first day of practice for the Cougars. The Utes had their first day yesterday. We had Josh Furlong on earlier in the show. You can listen to that wherever you get your podcast. Go to KSLSports.com or the KSL Sports app. Two good places to find it right away. We touched on a lot of stuff there, and your point to him right out of the gate was well taken. We've done this a lot, and there's always a lot of positivity, and everybody's undefeated.
Yeah, it's an extension of Media Day.
Couple things that give you the most confidence and a couple of things that you think should be most worrisome for Ute fans. Anything jump out at you in either direction, given that there's a lot of unknowns? For me, one of the things is the defensive line. We were talking with Josh. The wide receivers are the thing that clearly can be upgraded in this new era with the new coach. There's a lot of room for improvement there, whether they pull it off or not. There's room for improvement. And then to me, one of the areas that has been brilliant, and I just think it'd be hard to sustain because it's been so off the charts good. But if they can sustain it, it's really important. It's the D-line. I mean, Kyle would always talk about, hey, you want to have 4 good defensive linemen. And Kyle's like, no, you got to have 6 because you need 3 defensive tackles for the 2 spots, and you need 3 pass rushers for the 2 outside spots. And there'd be years they'd have 7 and 8 guys who could fill those spots. And it's crazy how they've sustained it. And I wonder if it can be sustained going forward. Now, Luther Ellis is one of the guys who stayed on the staff, right? So they've got some continuity there. Maybe they can sustain it. It was usually a massive advantage for the Utes.
I think they've got some players there. I mean, Holtzclaw, Carson Kafusi. These guys, the Kafusi's a younger guy, got some experience. Kid out of corner, Cash Dillon. So they got some dudes there. It's just a question of maybe they're not as proven as they have been as a collective unit because you're losing a John Henry Daly.
Right.
And they've had guys, the year before, this time last year, you were losing Tonavasa in the middle, those types of things. So I'm going to go along the lines of that. I expect these players to be able to be good until I see otherwise because the position collectively has earned that right, and unless I see something different there. But yeah, I think there's questions throughout the entire team. And the one thing, I don't know that I would say worry, but one I want to keep an eye on is just there's so much brand new. And how does that work when there's so much brand new? Because for years there was hardly anything that was new. And so with this new offensive coaching staff and so forth, they're all saying and believing in the right things right now. But there is going to come a time this season where there's going to be at least some form of minimal struggle. How do you react in that? So Morgan Scalley has never had to make a decision that affects the team. He's made millions of decisions that affect an important side of the ball. But in that moment, and if you look at the way it played out, is it was sort of nice that he had an opportunity in the Vegas Bowl to get his feet wet,
he
to
said
feel
that.
it.
Yeah.
And so there was a much hubbub about which was essentially a forced resignation of Kyle. Now, they'll be up there on the hill. They will disagree with that to an extent. But basically, in my mind, he was forced to make the decision that he made. Mm-hmm. He had really very little choice, right? And then with the Michigan thing, and we know Mark Harlan said he was disappointed and all that. But that actually, when it happened, I think is going to help the team because it gave – now Morgan was the offensive guys. They knew they were leaving, but they still stayed through that game because it was only a few days later. It wasn't like he took the job – that traditionally is that week after the season, you know what I mean? And then he got 3 or 4 weeks before the bowl game. Here it was literally only 3 or 4 days. I mean, they literally, boom, the next day they go to Vegas. And so they could wait a few days and they give him an opportunity to see what he can, just to get a better feel for that. So just the newness of it. Now, I don't think it's not worrisome, but it's something I want to watch to see how it plays out as far as that goes. And then I think they lost. You're going to lose talent every year because they run out of eligibility, at least I think. I don't know with the NCAA. Maybe they'll just have a merry-go-round of eligibility forever. Yeah. And then you'll lose guys to the NFL, and then you'll lose guys to the transfer portal. But normally, not necessarily. Like I got Dillingham. I asked him about, hey, you lost a quarterback and a running back for money. Right? That's an issue to me. I mean, potentially a good quarterback, 1,000-yard rusher, who wasn't even first team. The first team guy got hurt. And so he steps in, Brown, and now he's down there in Austin, right? Yeah. Is this a concern? Well, he shot back at me. We've only lost 4 guys out of our 2 deep in the last 3 years. Get a little defensive. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the point is, you normally don't lose a lot of high-profile guys, but this year they did because of the situation. And that, so all that stuff gives me a level of concern. At defense, you lose Smith-Soden at the back end, right? And we already talked about John up
Henry
front.
Daly, who was a third of their sacks
and then you got
year.
Buchanan over here, who looked like, okay, he's going to be the next guy in the line of hybrid tight end receiver types, right? And you lost the Moa kid who's supposed to be a 5-star recruit and all that, and he was on campus. Mark Harlan couldn't believe it. Mark, I'm right there with you. He was on campus, and he went to class, and then he transfers. I'm arm in arm with you, Mark, but that's the world we live in.
I know. It is mind-blowing, but welcome to today.
I don't think Mark was complaining about the individual. He's just complaining about the
universe has
system.
changed very quickly.
Yeah, that's the way it goes, and you never know who's in, who's out, and any time, basically. So all that stuff leads me to wonder, how is it going to be? I don't think it's going to be bad, because I got them right there. I think they should be picked third, and that's a fair assessment. And the way I do preseason stuff is, what do they deserve to be picked? Not how they're going to finish. It's two different things. When I make a preseason prediction, well, then at the end you were wrong. Well, yeah, duh. But it's two different things. What do they deserve to be picked?
The whole thing, you're picked first. You're picked sixth. It sounds totally different. Yeah, but when it works out at the end of the year, there might only be 1 or 2 games between first and sixth place. This is a league that had a 4-way tie for first 2 years ago. So it sounds like there's this huge difference, and yet I just don't believe that. There rarely is. It's really fine margins.
Right.
And I'm with you. There's a lot of unknowns. And to me, the biggest unknown is, how are they going to handle hard times and hard losses, and how are they going to be able to bounce back from that? And that to me is huge, and it can't be known until it has to be done. I thought that was a good point by Josh Furlong. Well, he kind of had to do it as a defensive coordinator when the offense was gutted by injuries and just couldn't produce, and they were running out different quarterbacks every couple of weeks. So that is a good indication there. And then the other thing is, everything seems to be happening faster. Everything seems sped up. The judgments are faster. We just saw UCLA fire a coach who was a reach as a hire. I mean, it's nothing against that particular person. I don't know that they should. Pretty sure they should have never put someone in who hadn't been a coordinator yet. That seems crazy. And then they blew it up so quickly. That's just one example. There are others. But our history, sitting here watching coaches who we get to watch up close, many, not all, but many of whom we knew before they got the job. And you could kind of anticipate, I think this is a good hire, and here's the reasons why. And I think that's what we think with Morgan. This is probably a good hire, and here's the reasons why, but you never know for sure. But because there's so many snap judgments made, and watching the history of these local guys here, that's a bad idea. Jay Hill's first year at Weber State was terrible. Now, by the time you get 3-4 years in, Jay's cooking. He's flying. He's on fire. It's awesome. But, man, that was a rough start. Gary Croton had a great first year, but then years 2, 3, and 4 were hard. They were brutal. It was a tough first year, but Bronco really took off the second year. Kyle had 2 years and a month that were tough, but by the third year, he was rolling, and the fourth year was literally perfect. Literally perfect. And for Kalani, for multiple reasons, and there was a lot going on, but it was 4 years of mediocrity. One of them was horrible. But that by year 5, he had it figured out. And it's been a really good 6-year run. His only real problem now is quarterback injuries. That seems to be the only thing that stumps them. 4 of these last 6 years have been double-digit win seasons. The 2 that weren't, quarterback injuries. So, but again, it shows that for all the success Kalani and Kyle and Bronco had, you just can't judge them right away. Whether it's
not a first-year head coach.
Yeah, year 2, year 3, year 5, you see results for different reasons at different times. And how patient can you afford to be in this era of college football? And I bring that up because you and I were both at Utah basketball when it was on top of the world, or standing only underneath Kentucky basketball, literally the only team that could knock them out in the NCAA tournament 3 years in a row. And then quick decisions, and it goes wrong, and it's 20 years of trying to get it back on track. So you got to have some patience. You don't dare have too much. And history suggests to me we're going to need a little bit here before we judge Morgan.
I think he's earned the right to have this job. That's the most important thing.
Agreed.
It's not a reach whatsoever.
No.
And the coach in waiting, it was messy, and it often is, but that doesn't mean that there's not positives within that coach in waiting system. For instance, Kyle was very vocal about how Morgan had the opportunity to interview for the Jason Beck job. Mm-hmm. So he had experience on that. So he was bringing him along. So I think there are positives, and we knew that he was going to be the head coach. He had that little blip there where the thing with the receivers guy was discovered years later, and they took it away, but then he got it back. And so with that in mind, he's been able to train for this as much as possible as a first-year head coach. At the same time, I can recall Bronco, who was a little more open than Kyle in terms of admitting weaknesses. You can ask Bronco, and I remember him asking him, He said, I had no clue what I was doing. I thought I did. And it's like with Kyle, we just had Josh Furlong go listen to that interview saying, Kyle, and I know he says he was right, Josh is right when he says this, that Kyle talks about you have to wait basically until you get into October till you know what you have as a team. And I think it's the same thing with a head coach. I think you got to wait 2 or 3 seasons, as you say, to see what you have. I do think they're set up with a returning quarterback to be competitive this year. That's the most important thing. This year is the most important thing. Next year is next year, but right now it's now, literally. And so with that in mind, I think they're set up to be competitive. And what does that mean? I think to me, competitive, I put the bar at regular season at 8 wins. That's where I start. I think if you have 8 wins, you're a competitive team. Maybe not literally every game, but overall. And then can it go from there? Can it get to 9? Can it get to 10? If it can get to 10, okay, you're really good. Because if you can get to 10, you could probably get to 11. Right? I don't put anybody's undefeated. That's just so hard in a conference to be undefeated. So I look at this team baseline, it can be competitive, which means 8. Now, I know Ute fans, I'm not saying you're going to finish 8-4. That's not the point. That's the starting point. Can you go from there? I think yes. Can they get to 9? Yes. Can they get to 10? That gets a little dicier. Because I believe if you can get to 10, if you are a team who has 10 wins, in most cases, you can look at least one of those losses and say, oh, they probably should win. It's the same thing. Look at Utah last year. They got to 10. Could they have gotten to 11? Yes.
Yeah.
They lost by 3 to the Cougars. Right? So obviously that's a game that had an opportunity to be won. And we know the Tech game was very tight deep into the fourth quarter. And it didn't break their way, but they still got to 10. So I'm going to look at, can this team get to 8? Yes. And then where do they go from there? There's going to be 2 or 3, maybe 4 games that could go either way. What do you do? That's why I'm a little bit cautious on Houston. Because Houston had the breakout season, but they had so many of those games that went their way. Can they do it again? Maybe they can.
That is just the nature of sports. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs 2 years ago won a bunch of close games. It was spectacular. And last year, they couldn't recreate the magic. And so if that happens at the pro level, you know it can happen at the college level.
Right.
So to look at those close games, I think that's absolutely a factor.
Games that I think for Utah going, we'll start from front to beginning.
Before we leave,
go ahead.
The thing about Houston, they do play Tech in Utah this year, but they miss a lot of good teams. They miss BYU. They miss Arizona. They miss TCU.
Okay.
I just
works in their
I don't
favor.
know that they're going to win it, but they ought to be able to stay in the mix. It's just not. Now, some of the stuff, Oklahoma State was terrible, but now I'm seeing stuff ranking Big 12 quarterbacks, and people think they literally have the best quarterback in the league. And that's saying something. Utah and BYU are both returning really good quarterbacks. And they're not the only ones.
Depends on how you're going to evaluate the quarterback.
Yep.
I think the best throwing quarterback in the league is Fafita. But
another good quarterback who wasn't ranked number 1. It was Mestmeyer. I'm mispronouncing his name, but
the North Texas
the North Texas kid transferred to Oklahoma State. I see him he's ranked as a number 1.
He's a pro prospect.
And I'm drawing it out of bigger lists of college quarterbacks, but I'm just looking at the Big 12 guys, and they have both of our local quarterbacks and Fafita in the top 20 nationally, but they don't have any of them number 1 in the league.
Okay, well. I mean, it's just a ranking.
Right. So maybe by the time Houston plays Oklahoma State in mid-October, that's a much bigger game than it looks like based on what we've seen out of Oklahoma State the last 2 years.
I think the potential either-way games, certainly, obviously, the Cougars, Wildcats, and Horned Frogs. So that's 3.
Those 3 November games, that's the gauntlet for Utah.
And I can argue Kansas. And I can argue we already have Houston, right? And I can even argue maybe West Virginia because I think Rich Rod is going to get it going there. But I'm putting that as a soft maybe.
Also, you get to the end of the year and who's healthy. I mean, whatever team looks like now can look really different by the time you get to November. Can look very different. But to your point, shouldn't Utah start at least 6-2 and maybe 7-1 or 8-0? the front of the schedule is loaded with friendly games, and the back of the schedule is loaded with difficult tests. So I think this is a team that has to start fast, but we have to take it with a grain of salt. And if they dig an early hole, that's a huge, huge red flag.
Yeah, I don't think they will, but I get your point. I would have no problem agreeing with that. But I don't know that I can solidly say 7-8-0.
Well, 8-0 goes back to your point. I mean, stuff happens. Now, if you're 7-1 going into November,
oh, I would take that.
Yeah, that's good enough. You'd rather be 8-0. I just think there needs to be a lot more winning than losing early in the schedule. And I think there needs to be recognition. November looks hard. Now, when we get there, maybe these teams aren't as good. Maybe these teams were good, but they have injuries. I know it's a lot of question marks.
It's hard to win 7 games in a row.
I get it.
You look at the Cougars last year. I mean, they're down at Colorado, at Arizona, and they get both of those. Things went their way. Now, they created things to go their way for sure, but it's hard to do, man.
I get it. But the Utes play 4 of their first 5 at home, and the road game is at Iowa State, who's got a new coach and has to rebuild everything. Now, in an era when you can bring kids with you, you know, the rebuild maybe can happen a little faster. So let's see what happens with Iowa State early in the year. But I just think that's friendly. Game 6 is at Colorado, and I think I'm higher on Colorado than you are. You've got tons of question marks. I'm not in love with them. 500 team to me would be get bowl eligible. That'd be a pretty good season for them.
Well, if you want to contend, you got to win at Colorado.
Right.
So it's up to them. What do you want to do
right.
here?
And then you're back home for Houston. It's there's 5 road games, and to me, the 2 hardest road games are in November. And the BYU game's in November. It's a home game, but that's the meat of the schedule.
Yeah.
So,
have you ever gone to Cincinnati for Halloween?
I have
That's
not.
dangerous. I'm just saying.
You have experience in Cincinnati at Halloween?
Oh.
I don't think you do. But nonetheless, you're right. The Utes are at Cincinnati on Halloween. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Everything you missed in this show, the baseball, the football, USC and Notre Dame. It's just a little blip. They're getting back together again. We'll get to that coming up. Stay with us.
Queen Carvania stood haloed by the morning sun. An army hung on her every word.
My champions, I have sold my chariot on Carvana. 'Twas a lovely SUV, an inexplicably queenly offer. They're even coming to the castle to collect it. Tonight, we feast. An offer you can feast on. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.